The sharp rap on my front door at dawn felt like a thunderclap, jolting me from the quiet of my morning coffee. It was 6 a.m., the sun barely peeking over the pines around my lakeside cabin in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Barefoot in flannel pajamas, I shuffled to the glass door, expecting a confused delivery driver. Instead, there stood Margaret Voss, president of the local HOA, clad in a pristine blazer, clutching a clipboard like a general wielding a saber. "We need your property cleared by Friday for our neighborhood festival," she declared, no preamble, just raw audacity. Her words hit harder than the brew in my mug. I blinked, stunned. "Excuse me," I managed, but she was already pushing past me into my living room, eyeing the space like a realtor at an open house. "This is perfect for the main stage," she said, ignoring my protests. "Lake view, open lawn ideal for community seating." She flashed a smile sharp enough to cut glass. "It's for the neighborhood. You understand." My collie, Rusty, patted in, sniffed her, and let out a low growl, as if he sensed her nerve. I wasn't part of the HOA, never had been. My father built this cabin in the 70s, a private haven long before the HOA sprouted like weeds, trying to choke everything in its path. But to Margaret, my land was just another square on her chessboard. I stood there, grappling with her gall. "You want me to vacate my home so your festival can take over my property?" I asked, voice tight. She sighed, like I was missing the obvious. "It's not about you, Tom. It's the community spirit. We've got 250 RSVPs, invites sent, and porta potties booked. You'll be compensated for any inconvenience." She waved a hand, dismissing my shock. "Your driveway connects to our road, so we've got temporary easement rights. It's a legal gray area." That's when it clicked she wasn't asking. She was steamrolling. My father had fought to keep this land free, even taking the HOA to court decades ago to secure a boundary marker by the lake, a legal line they couldn't cross. Every HOA chief since had schemed to blur it, but Margaret was going for broke. "You're trespassing," I said, pointing to the door. "Get out, or I'm calling the sheriff." She smirked, clipboard tucked under her arm. "We'll do this the hard way," then she said, striding out. I stood frozen, the open door letting in the lake's cool air. This wasn't about a festival. It was about control. Margaret hated defiance, fined a neighbor for an unapproved mailbox, hounded a retiree over a flagpole. Now she was after my land, and I knew she wasn't bluffing. By afternoon, I walked to the dock to clear my head. The lake sparkled, herons gliding over its surface. I hoped Margaret might see reason, but then I spotted it, a pile of folding tables and a tarp-covered tent dumped on my gravel lot. My pulse spiked. I snapped photo. This was no mistake. It was an invasion. That evening, an HOA email pinged in. Subject, Festival Logistics and Cooperation. It was laced with legalese but boiled down to, "We're using your land. Deal with it." They'd mapped my cabin as event central band, fireworks, food trucks, all partly funded by HOA dues. A bolded line read, "Non-members may still be required to support community events." I forwarded it to my attorney, my blood simmering. This was war. The next morning, I woke to hammering. HOA workers were on my land, staking out spots for vendors. "Just following orders," one mumbled. I called the sheriff. Deputy Harris arrived, looking exhausted. "Let me guess, Margaret," he said. I nodded. "She's throwing a festival on my property." He had the stakes. Civil matter, technically. A trespassing complaint could take weeks. "Show me your deed, though, and you're solid. Move fast." I stormed back to the cabin, fury building. This wasn't just a house. It was where I'd fished with Dad, where I'd built my first fire, where Rusty curled up by the hearth. Margaret wanted to erase that for a party she could have held anywhere. If she wanted a fight, I'd make her regret it. The following day, more hammering. Through the blinds, I saw HOA volunteers stringing banners and setting cones, transforming my lot into a fairground. A sign read, "Welcome to the annual Lakeside Fest, courtesy of your HOA." Rusty growled, sensing the intrusion. I pulled on boots, grabbed my phone, and marched out. A woman I didn't know thrust a clipboard at me. "Are you the groundskeeper? Need your sign-off for the permit." I stared, incredulous. "Groundskeeper?" She nodded. "Margaret said the owner's away, and you're managing the site." My gut twisted. I snatched the clipboard. The permit was fake HOA letterhead, no county seal, my name absent. "I'm the owner," I snapped. "This is trespassing. Touch anything else, and I'm pressing charges." They scattered. I tore down the banners, tossed the cones, then noticed something else. PVC pipes running along my lot, tied to a pump near the HOA clubhouse, trickling water onto my lawn. I traced it to their drainage system, rigged runoff to soften my land, hoping to bully me into submission. I grabbed the shears and cut the pipes. Their dirty trick sparked an idea. I drove to see Ray, my father's old friend, a retired county engineer who knew the lake's hidden systems. I showed him the photos and laid out Margaret's scheme. His eyes narrowed. The HOA's been eyeing your land since your dad passed. They screwed up with this water stunt. He unrolled a faded blueprint. Your property's got a flood control valve under the west yard, tied to a county overflow from the 60s. Still legal, still functional. Run it a few hours, and their festival ground are a swamp. No damage to your place if you prep right. I asked about blowback. He grinned. Just enough to ruin their day. We planned it out. Back home, I found the control panel in the shed, dusted it off, and tested the valve. It hummed, ready to unleash chaos. I bought sandbags, hoses, and checked Dad's old backup pump. Everything was set. The HOA didn't know their stage sat on a sleeping giant. That evening, I watched Margaret strut along the HOA path, megaphone in hand, directing workers like a dictator. Tables arrived, a generator rumbled, and an archway rose by my dock. She'd even hired a security guard who waved like we were buddies. I sipped iced tea on my porch, letting her build her fantasy. That night, I double-checked the sandbags, timed the pump's flow, and ensured no spillover to my cabin. I didn't want injury, just Margaret's plans sank. This wasn't vengeance, it was reclaiming what was mine. She'd forgotten laws, consequences, and the lake's long memory. I barely slept. By morning, the festival was in full swing. SUVs lined the road, families in matching shirts hauling coolers. A DJ van parked near the boundary marker, bass thumping. Margaret's setup was flawless: gatered tables, tiki torches staked into my lawn, a bounce house wobbling in the breeze. She took a stage on my lot, microphone in hand, preaching about community pride and shared spaces, claiming my lakefront like she owned it. The crowd cheered. My jaw clenched. I waited an hour, letting them settle, letting Margaret think she'd won. Then I grabbed the remote panel, sank into my armchair, and flipped the switch. Nothing shifted at first, but I knew the pump was working. The underground channels would spread water fast. I counted to 60, stepped onto the porch, and heard the first splash. A kid shouted, "The ground's wet." Another voice, panicked, "Why is it flooding?" I leaned on the railing, watching water seep through the gravel, glinting in the sun. It swirled around tables, soaked banners, and tilted the bounce house. A tent collapsed, trays of food floating like debris. Laughter turned to shouts. Margaret screamed, "What's happening? Is this a joke?" She yanked cords from the DJ setup, slipping in mud. Guests scrambled, tires spinning, cars stuck. Kids were scooped up, sundresses ruined. Margaret spun in the chaos, knee-deep, her perfect event dissolving. She jabbed a finger at me. "You did this. You ruined us." I shrugged. "Didn't you call this community land? Nature's just sharing." Deputy Harris pulled up, looking done. Margaret, drenched, charged him. "Arrest him. He flooded our festival." I handed over my deed, property map, and flood system permit. He read slowly, noting the HOA's runoff stunt. "He's got rights to manage his drainage," he said. "Can't arrest him. You set up without consent, ma'am. That's trespassing, maybe a nuisance." Margaret went pale. Phones were out, filming her meltdown, mascara streaking. Within an hour, the lot was a marsh. Coolers bobbed, chairs drifted. Margaret's triumph was a soggy wreck. I sat with Rusty, tossing him biscuits, sipping tea, watching the chaos. Volunteers fished out plates with nets. A banner hung limp over a fence, a white flag. Then came the kicker. Margaret's daughter, a teen with a phone, live-streamed from the muck. "My mom lied," she said, voice steady. "This isn't HOA land." She faked permits, forged signatures, and even tried flooding his yard first. She called him a caretaker. Margaret lunged for the phone, but the girl dodged, cutting the stream. The crowd hushed, some grinning, others recording. The video exploded online, titled, "HOA Tyrant Sunk by Own Kid at Lake Disaster." Comments tore into her, stealing land and losing to a pump legendary. By evening, a petition with 50 signatures demanded Margaret's ouster. At the HOA's emergency meeting, she ranted, blaming her daughter and haters, but neighbors aired years of her abuses: fines for flowerbeds, secret bylaws, harassment. The vote was 50-4. She was done. County inspectors soon probed her home, finding she'd siphoned HOA dues for catering, decorations, even a leased SUV, all disguised as community costs. An audit uncovered fake invoices and missing funds. Margaret faced fines, a lifetime HOA ban, and rumors of charges. Her house hit the market. She was gone in weeks. The lake settled. I repaired the lawn, planted cedars by the boundary marker, and added a bench with a plaque. Honor the land, it honors you. Rusty patrolled, tail wagging. Kids fished again, asking permission. Neighbors nodded, the air lighter. A news crew dubbed it the Great Lakeside Flood. Online, it became a meme, a cautionary tale of HOA overreach. A property rights group used the story for advocacy, drawing a line for homeowners nationwide. The new HOA, led by a guy named Greg, apologized, vowed transparency, and corrected the easement records. I found Dad's old lake charts, proof of the land's roots. One evening, I sat on the dock, Rusty snoring nearby, watching the sunset. A family laughed across the water, free of Margaret's shadow. The lake was still, the fight over. I'd guarded more than land I'd honored a legacy. No one would challenge that again. What do you think? Was I justified, or did I go too far? Share your thoughts below, especially on confronting bullying and injustice in your own life. Where do you stand?